What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Early Edge MLB edition. We're almost back, or better yet, maybe we're fully back because it's not just me on the show. I'm just hosting. I'm not dishing out any sort of analysis. I'm going to be joined today, and you all are going to be joined today by one familiar face, two faces you haven't seen in a while because it hasn't been MLB season. So you all know Mike McClure, and of course, you know AMags and Sniper. They just haven't been here in a while. Sniper, I'm going to start with you. How good is it to be back?
It is good to be back, but I did want to wear this shirt in honor of the late, great Bob Uecker because we lost him in January with the just a bit outside. Although I have to say I like the tried the corner and missed line a little bit better. That's kind of underrated because that's a great how he said tried the corner and missed for me. But it is great to be back. It's great to see everybody. It's great to see some familiar screen names in the chat.
AMags, your Yankees hater, he's already here. He's nothing if not punctual. Jeff Stenberg in the chat, he says, hello, AMags, in a Jerry Seinfeld or maybe a Newman voice. Either way, how you feeling?
Very New York-esque there, the Jerry Seinfeld voice. I appreciate that. And yes, he is punctual. He's consistent. I appreciate all the banter with Jeff. And hey, you know what? After the wretched Game 5 that we watched in the World Series of the Yankees, I am still donning the Yankees cap. It's it's all I can do right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jeff is consistent and Mike McClure is consistent because Mike, I feel like we are together all the time, even when we're not physically together, because you are the busiest analyst in sports as far as I'm concerned. I'm kind of right there with you from a host and analyst standpoint, but you're wearing that KC hat. We transitioned from our golf show in the last couple of days. We were on the Early Edge. You're giving out basketball picks, all of those things. Now you're talking baseball. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, Sia, and could not be more fired up to see these two gentlemen on the screen with us because that means it's day baseball time. And I think we all appreciate a little day baseball. And I have to say, we'll save it for the show a little bit later, but I'm relatively optimistic about all of our favorite teams this season.
Yeah.
I absolutely love to hear that. So this is going to be a win total show. We're gonna talk about win totals and just division by division, who we like and things of that. I shouldn't say it's just a win total show, but win totals for each division and pretty much each team that we actually like. So we're going to go through that. But before we get started, before we went live, Sniper, we were talking about, it's been a little while, right? From an MLB season standpoint, your last, I should say, experience memory from last year was, you were at Game 5, Yankees, Dodgers. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Yankees were up in that game. They were down in the series, up in that game 5-0. Yep. Dodgers storm back, win the World Series. You were sitting right there. Just talk to us about that experience and try to be careful with your AMags is sitting right here, so be sensitive.
It was frustrating kind of because I always want, if my favorite team's the Cubs, for those who don't know, I don't have my favorite team in the series, I just want it to go 7 games. So if you say going into each game, I don't really have a rooting interest, that's not really true once we get into the series. Game 5, I really wanted the Yankees to win. So I was fired up when it was 5-0 just because I wanted to go back to LA. And when it gets to the 5th inning, I'm like, man, we're sitting pretty. We're going back to Game 6. And then the Yankees completely melted down in the 5th inning, and that sucked. Something that I think a lot of people might have forgotten, I'm sure AMags has not, the Yankees still took the lead again after that and then blew it again. So it was quite the frustrating game from that perspective.
I definitely forgot that. AMags, your reaction?
Yeah, he's giving me PTSD. Honestly, this is just flashback after flashback of just Judge dropping the ball and giving up multiple leads.
And Cole not covering first was that was bad. The inning.
Once you lost the 5-0 lead, though, the game was over. It really didn't matter what happened after that.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, let's break into some win totals. We're going to go division-based win totals. So we're going to start with the AL East. We'll start with we'll start with the Yankees, or maybe we won't. But AMags, I do want to start with you. So we're going to look at the AL East first. Our favorite win total bet in the AL East. And again, we'll go division by division in terms of our favorite win total bets. AMags, I thought you were going to be on a Yankees over, but somebody else on this panel is on a Yankees over. Instead, you're taking out my team. I've been an Orioles fan since I was a kid. We're looking at an under of 88.5.
Yes, yeah, and I was going to take the Yankees over, and then I saw you were hosting the show, so I had to beat up on the Orioles here. But yeah,
Okay.
Orioles under 88.5. Look, truthfully, with this, it just comes down to the pitching. You lost a guy that won 15 games last year. He led your team in multiple categories. ERA was under 3. It just was really a great season for Corbin Burns. That you don't re-sign him. Who do you put in the mix there? It's Charlie Morton, a guy that I think may really have some issues with that home run to fly ball rate. With the fences moving in Baltimore. And then you have a team that, behind him doesn't have a ton of depth. You're looking at a bunch of question marks, in my opinion, in Eflin and actually a guy like Seguro, I believe is how you say his name. Maybe Snyder can help me out with that a little better. But I just think question mark after question mark. The bullpen should be pretty good, but you know what? If you're going to rely on that bullpen heavily to win you games, I do not have a lot of confidence that down the stretch, everyone's going to be healthy and still kicking at the same rate. So I think 88.5, if you're getting near that 90 number, it's too much for me. And I do have to say, some of the projection systems I trust on this stuff more than some of my own eyes and stats I look at, they have them closer like 83, 82, somewhere in there. So I think that this number is pretty significantly off. I'll take the under.
Yeah, I didn't love, again, you guys are closer to this than I am, but because I am kind of an Orioles fan here, Nationals too, but grew up with the Orioles, it didn't feel like they had the best of off seasons, especially compared to some of these teams. Like the Yankees, Mike McClure, let's go there. I mean, obviously they lost Juan Soto, but, as the Yankees do, they're always reloading and reshuffling. You're looking at a win total with them.
Yeah, I'm going to go over on the Yankees, and it is correlated for me with the under on the Orioles. I love the under play from AMags on the Orioles. I have them at 85 wins, and I've got the Yankees at 95 wins. I was really kind of shocked to see this number sitting at 92.5. I really thought we'd be paying 94.5. It would be a spot where I'd want to stay away at that point. But I really think that's kind of the baseline for this team. When you talk about the talent, they have the upside to be a 101, 102 win kind of team. A down year, a bad year, they're going to be sitting 84 wins. I think I say that's a bad year, but that's their range, right? For me, it's between essentially 84 and 101. So for me, I think that Boston, while I am somewhat optimistic and could be sold on them, I do think that there's a big range of outcomes there. I think Tampa Bay is not going to be relevant at all. And I think Toronto is not going to be relevant at all. So I like the New York Yankees here in general, not only to go over this number 92.5, I do like them to win their division as well. Again, I thought this number should be 94.5.
Well, we'll get to the Red Sox in just a second. I do want to give the chat a shout out because I know this is like kind of an awkward time and most of you didn't even know this show was happening until earlier this afternoon, but you're in here. You probably got the SportsLine notifications turned on. Either way, Rick, Joe, CLE fan, Jeff Stenberg, of course, in here. M Squared coming off his take. We have G Squared, and he says, spring is in the air, let's go. And I do need to pay some homage to Mike McClure's comment about day baseball. I mean, this is the early edge. This is SportsLine. Like, we are back to day betting, and there's just not a lot of things that are more fun than that. And baseball is the gift that keeps on giving when it comes to that. Scott Kobe in here. Let's see. We've got AMags and Matt Sniper in the chat. So Sniper, talk to me about the Red Sox, because it does feel like when I look at off seasons, I mean, the Yankees always have a good off season, or at least so it appears. They're just spending money, right? And then we have the Orioles. Didn't look like they had a great off season. It did feel like the Red Sox had a good one. You like their win total over?
I do. I think the Red Sox are going to be a lot better than a lot of people think, and that seems to be a theme with this team. I remember last year I talked to Liam Hendricks, and he said one of the reasons he signed with the Red Sox was because they always seemed to punch above their weight. And sure enough, everybody had them finishing last place in the East last year, and they ended up 81-81. And now things are really rolling in the right direction with them. They finished 9th in the majors in runs scored. They added Alex Bregman. They're going to get a full season from Trevor Story. I'm sure that they hope they're going to get a full season from Tristan Cassis at first base. They still have Jaron Duran, who took a huge step forward last year, All-Star Game MVP there. Not that that matters much. Rafael Devers actually felt like he should have been better last year. He's their centerpiece superstar. Offense is going to be really good, especially in that ballpark. The rotation has a lot of question marks, but a lot of upside there. Garrett Crochet, they traded for him. He was one of the best pitchers in baseball in the first half before the White Sox totally dialed him back in the second half, and he was bad anyway. We'll see how long he holds up, but he has a lot of talent. Tanner Houck became a frontline starter last year. Walker Buehler, terrible for almost all of the season last year, coming off Tommy John surgery, his second one, by the way. But his last few starts in the playoffs, he was great. He was great in the World Series. If he gets back to being the Walker Buehler of old, that's a big plus. Speaking of somebody maybe being their old self, Lucas Giolito coming back from missing all of last year. They've got a lot of upside in this rotation. They've got Hendricks at the back end of the bullpen, along with Aroldis Chapman, Garrett Whitlock back there. A lot of things to like about the Red Sox, so I'm over 86.5 wins.
AMags, you've got some follow-up here.
Yeah, no, I put it in the chat, but it's like honestly half the reason I like the under on the O's is like, you know, when you look at who's going to make the playoffs and really be competitive, I just think honestly the Red Sox are in a better spot right now, especially with that pitching Snyder just talked about. So you know, part of my pick with the O's was actually to take them to not make the playoffs because I think the Red Sox have a much better chance now.
Mike, you're just going in on the Yankees, aren't you? I mean, is anybody paying attention to the chat?
You said something, they got better in the offseason on paper, and I was counting up how many rings the Yankees have won on paper in the last decade, and it was like 8. But, yeah.
This is good stuff. Always want to be in the chat. You never know. Mike McClure is just lurking there, whether he's on the show or not. All right, let's it's on me. We just spent so much time on the AL East. We'll pick up the pace a little bit here. We're going to go to the AL Central. Favorite win total bet in the AL Central. And Mike, I'm going to start with you. You're wearing the Kansas City hat. You were a champion of this team last year. How are we feeling about them this year?
I feel even better. I think that the success last year is definitely something that they're going to be able to build on. And I ultimately think the division, once again, in the AL Central is wide open. And that is certainly evident by just looking at win totals, looking at odds. But the fact that the Royals are at 82.5 at plus 102, that's appealing to me. I think this is an 85 plus win team. I think the AL is just going to be an absolute logjam this year when you've got teams like the Orioles, the Astros, really that division, the Rangers, Mariners, and then just this plethora of teams right here in this AL Central. I think there are definitely opportunities, but I really do think the Royals still have this little window that they can build upon. Yes, the roster, particularly the outfield offensively, is not good, but there are enough pieces around it, and they do get, again, a ton of those games against that AL Central division. So ultimately, I think this is an 85-win team. Love the price point here, 82.5.
AMags, you're vigorously nodding your head. Same answer, right?
Yeah, and you're going to get plus money on it at FanDuel for the over here. I think that that's really the way to go in the Central. I think that the Twins, you know, truthfully are probably going to be worse than people think, even though the number from last year has come down for the win total. And then when you look at those White Sox, those lowly White Sox, they can certainly contribute some wins. And when you're going to play, what is it? I think it's 16 now they play in the division there. I mean, that's just a huge number over what like the folks in the West or the East are actually going to play. So yeah, I really like that one.
All right. And Sniper, we're looking at the Twins win total. And again, if we're big KC guys, or at least 2 of the 3 here are big KC guys, it certainly would help if the White Sox are bad, which we know they will be, but also maybe if the Twins are a little underwhelming.
Yeah, and I agree with them. I think the Royals are probably my pick to win the AL Central this year. It's obviously separate out the White Sox, but then you're looking at Guardians. I feel like they kind of overachieved last year a little bit. I don't think they're as good this year. The Twins fell apart down the stretch. The Tigers had that miracle run. How real was that? They didn't do a ton to get better in the offseason. I do think they're better, but man, that was kind of fluky, I think, on the run at the end. I think the Royals are probably going to end up as the last team standing there in this division, but I'll go a different route and go under on the Twins here on the wins. They were the highest total in this division, and I don't think they're the best team. I think the Royals are the best team, and if anything, I might have looked at the Guardians over, even though I think they're worse because it was low. I think it was like 77.5 or something like that. I just thought the main thing for me when I look at the Twins is you can see some talent on paper, but the main thing that jumps out at you when you look at their lineup is the talent of Carlos Correa, Byron Buxton, Royce Lewis. What are the odds those 3 are ever going to stay healthy all together for most of the season? It's just really, really low. And if all 3 are hurt at the same time, which seems like there are going to be stretches where all 3 are hurt at the same time, that's not a very good lineup that's left. Rotation, again, at the top end looks pretty good, but Joe Ryan hurt down the stretch. They've got injury concerns everywhere where it matters, and the bullpen looks like it might be strong, but Duran was kind of underwhelming last year compared to how good his stuff is. Just screams underachiever to me. So I'm under on the Twins.
All right. We're under on the Twins. I actually really like that take. Let's go to the AL West. Now, we're looking at win totals, got a lot of overs, we got a lot of unders. Hey, Mags, I bet people listening to this show, whether it's the podcast or watching us live right now, probably didn't think anybody was going to come to the show with the Oakland A's, Sacramento A's, Vegas A's. I'm not sure what A's they are, but you like an over. Now, granted, it's a lower number, but still, you like an over on the A's. Talk to us.
Yeah, and you know, truthfully, I didn't love the numbers in this division. I felt like they were pretty close. But the Rangers, I do think will win the division. Let's put it at that. The Astros, I know some on the show think they have a beat, and they probably do. I just kind of couldn't figure them out. They're usually better than they're not, right? So I'm looking around and I'm like, the A's, new ballpark, new scenery. You got some new guys in there. You got Severino. I actually like Springs. I know Springs, injuries and this and that from the Rays. I do like him. And then you kind of look through the lineup, guys like Lawrence Butler, who I think can, again, take a step forward. There's just some stuff to like that, at 71.5. I just think, you're probably in like the 74 to 75 range with this one. So I'll take the over. It wasn't my strongest play. And, truthfully, it's a lot just based upon talent, like guys like Butler and Mason Miller at the back end. There's just a ton of talent there, but you're going to have them click, right? So I wouldn't put your life savings on this, but I will say I'm going to have some fun riding the over here with the A's, Sacramento A's, whatever you want to call them. Definitely some. And one last, I know I didn't mention his name. One last thing, our buddy Brent Rooker is on that team. So we will certainly be betting quite a few of his overs individually this year as well.
All right. We just knocked out one of 3 takes on the AL West. Let's move to a team that AMags mentioned. Let's go to the Rangers, Sniper. We've got the Rangers. Their team total, win total, I should say, is 85.5. What are we feeling? Over or under?
Yeah, over on 85.5. It was one of my favorite ones on the board. I love the Rangers this year. I thought they had so many bad things happen to them last year. People love to talk about World Series hangover, and I do think it's a real thing, at least with pitching. Offensively, though, good grief. So much stuff went bad for them offensively. Adolis Garcia, who would have thought he would be so terrible last year? Evan Carter completely fell apart last year. He was not on the World Series team, but Wyatt Langford didn't really break out until the last month. If you quit paying attention until before the last month, you didn't see Wyatt Langford started his breakout. He's going to be a stud this year. Their offense is already much improved just with Garcia going back to his old self, or at least close to it. Evan Carter, I believe, is going to get back to who we thought he was toward the end of 2023. Langford's going to be great. Corey Seager and Marcus Semien are going to be great. Semien actually had a down year as well last year. So many guys on the Rangers went backward. They signed Jock Peterson to hit in the middle of that order. He's probably going to platoon, but he will absolutely feast on right-handers. Jake Berger is going to hit toward the back end of the lineup, but he could hit 30 home runs toward the back end of that lineup. It's a loaded offense. Pitching-wise, I know that nobody wants to count on him to stay healthy, and you probably shouldn't, but Jacob deGrom looked like his old self in his limited time right at the end of last year. He'll be all the way back from Tommy John. Tyler Mahle will be all the way back from Tommy John. If you want some young blood, Cody Bradford is a very, very good starting pitcher. We might see some of Kamar Rocker. We saw a little bit toward the end of last year. He's got some nice upside. Nathan Eovaldi is back to help them with the depth in the rotation. I love the Rangers to win the division. I'm all over the over.
Mike, you liked the Rangers last year, but I specifically remember you kind of qualified it because you said, hey, this is a team to maybe live bet their total in the middle of the season because they were starting the season with so many injuries and so many issues and rehab and all those things. Obviously, the injuries just kept coming, right? But with all that said, I see that you're on an Astros under, and I got to think that's at least somewhat tied to maybe you liking the Rangers again this year.
It is. I full transparency here. I wanted to be on the Rangers over. I didn't want to follow Snyder on it. He got to the rundown first, but it's great because I like the Astros under as well. But those two plays are absolutely correlated, as is what AMags said. I think the Oakland A's will be competitive in a number of those games. Some of it on merit, just on the talent of the team. Some of it on a team like the Houston Astros taking a step backwards, in my opinion, in terms of talent. I think the Astros, look, it's a team that's not comfortable to bet against because they've had so much success, right? They've found ways to win. The thing for me, though, when I look at this pitching staff, I think it's extremely high variance. We've seen guys like Hunter Brown who have been electric at times and just get absolutely rocked. I could say that about 3 of their 5 starting pitchers here. I think they've clearly lost some depth in terms of offense as well. So I think that this is a number that if you remove the team name but kept the roster the same, this number right here would be 83.5. So I'm going to go
the backslide is starting. The backslide starting.
Yep. For sure. So I'm going under here. I thought it should be 83.5. And to back up what everybody else has said, you see that number on the Texas Rangers at 85.5. I think the Rangers should be a pretty clear favorite to win this division. And they're not priced that way right now.
That is very interesting. So we're talking win totals, but we're also talking about value when it comes to division winners. Absolutely love to see that. Scott Kobe says, I'm going to bet a lot on Framber Valdez unders. Any reaction? Sniper, you're kind of nodding your head. Either
one of the guys I still kind of like. But yeah, I mean, you could see it. You could see he's had a lot of workload over the last couple of years, and he was a late bloomer anyway. So yeah, I could see it.
Maybe a guy to fade early with one of my first 5, Scott Kobe. Thanks for the tip. All right, let's go to real quick before we go to the NL. This is sort of a recap. If you're watching us, hit the like button if you haven't already, by the way. Make sure you're subscribed to SportsLine. And if you're listening to the podcast, make sure you go to YouTube and subscribe to SportsLine, because that's where you get all this content in terms of live content. But we've got Ben putting up all the favorite totals as it pertains to the AL East, AL Central, AL West. But we got to move. We got to move to the NL. So let's start with the East again. And Mike McClure, I'm going to start with you. The Philadelphia Phillies, be going under or over?
I'm going to go under here. And look, this is by far the toughest division for me to pick, because I do think that there are scenarios where the Mets are quite good. I think the Braves can rebound extremely nicely. But I did ultimately go under here. I think that this Phillies team, like we talked about ranges earlier, I don't think that they're going to have 100+ win upside this season like they may have in previous years, because I do think the level of competition over there got a lot more difficult. So I projected this number at 89. You're sitting here 90.5. It's really not so much of a strong play for me. Obviously, I had to give something for this particular division. That's where I would go, just because it is a number where a lot has to go right. You have to have a lot of health. And ultimately, I just felt that this team was a little overvalued. Would love to hear everyone else's opinion on it, though, because I could definitely be in the minority here. I'm somewhat optimistic on the Mets and somewhat optimistic on the Braves bouncing back, recovering again from injury. So by default, I'm kind of just a little bit lower on this Phillies team.
All right, well, let's stay here then. And AMags, I'm going to ask you, and Sniper, I'm going to ask you. I mean, admittedly, Mike says, hey, this isn't one of my stronger plays when it comes to division wins and losses. But AMags, if you had to pick a side here, would it be the Phillies under or the Phillies over at 90.5?
So I think for these teams in the NL East specifically, it's going to be like maybe early August where you're going to have the writing on the wall. Like it'll be, hey, we're going to make the playoffs, but we're not going to win the division. And I could definitely see a scenario where, maybe those last few weeks you're like, hey, we got to get ready to play the Dodgers in a long series here. Like we're going to do whatever we need to obviously get through the first round, but I could definitely see them trying to get some guys healthy. So yeah, I just think that NL East, as Mike alluded to, is tough this year for sure.
Yeah, and Sniper, go ahead. Yeah,
I was going to say, I agree that the Braves are going to bounce. It's funny you say bounce back because they made the playoffs and they won 89 games, but I think they're going to bounce back and get better because they had a lot of bad luck last year. I'm opposite of Mike on the Phillies and Mets. I'm a little more bearish on the Mets and a little more bullish on the Phillies. The one thing I will say on the Phillies is they don't have that much organizational depth. So if they got hit with the injury bug in multiple spots, let's say like 2 starters get hurt and 1 or 2 position players get hurt, they're kind of screwed because they don't have that much depth. But if they had relatively good health, like they pretty much had last year, I mean, everybody has a few injuries here or there. I know Ranger Suarez had a little bit of a thing, but for the most part, they were pretty healthy. If they get that again, I think they're probably just as good. But like I said, they don't have that much depth, and maybe that's kind of where Mike's coming from.
All right, in case people don't know the difference between bearish and bullish, because I'm not sure I do. You like a Mets under, so that means you were bearish about that.
Bulls faster. So if you're bullish, you like the team. If you're bearish, you're a little bit down.
Just think NFL Bears, they don't win. Like it just
I walked right into
they
that
have
one,
one.
didn't I?
You know, yeah.
And the 80s Bulls certainly, 90s Bulls certainly did win. All right, so you're bearish on the Mets, which means, Sniper, you like the under on their win total, which is also 90.5.
Yeah. I mean, I think they might be a playoff team. I think it's funny to phrase it this way, but I'm sure everybody here is a baseball expert, knows what I'm talking about. I think that the Mets are more likely to win the World Series than they are to win the division. Because if you look at right now, between Sean Manaea with the oblique injury, Frankie Montas injured, their starting rotation heading into the season, it looks like they're number 2 after Kodai Senga, who, by the way, might need a 6-man rotation, might not stay healthy all year anyway, but it looks like their number 2 is either David Peterson, who they would rather not even be in their top 5, or Clay Holmes, who is transitioning from a reliever. He was the Yankees closer entering the season last year. He looks like he might be the Mets number 2. He has enough of an arsenal, enough pitches to be able to be a starter. We just haven't seen him as a starter in the majors. We don't know how good he's going to be the second, third time through the order. I don't know how much I like this rotation heading into the year. They might maybe look a lot like last year in terms of getting off to a really slow start, getting hot down the stretch. They won 89 games. That would be the under here. I like the offense a lot. I don't know how thin it is because, again, if they have 1 or 2 injuries, the organizational depth, Mauricio could probably step in, but past that, I don't know how much depth they have organizationally. So I think the Mets have a lot of high-end talent. I think they could be great by the end of the year. I don't love them at the start of the year, so I'm under 90.5, especially. Mike mentioned the tough division. I think the Nationals are going to be better than a lot of people think. They're not a playoff team. They're going to have a losing record, but I think they're going to be competitive enough to give the top 3 teams fits at times.
What a pro. As AMags nods his head. What a pro. The Nationals. We like an over, AMags.
Oh, yeah, man, what a pro this guy Sniper is, man. Just led right into my pick perfectly. The Nats over 70.5 wins. I put this in the Discord maybe 2 weeks ago, and I was like getting a little worried that we were going to lose this number, honestly. They re-signed Kyle Finnegan, 38 saves last year. That really helps to shore up the back of the bullpen. But when you look at the guys that actually are in this lineup, I'm excited. CJ Abrams, Luis Garcia, there's actually some really nice bats in Josh Bell and James Wood. You know, you're actually, when you're looking at guys like Abrams and Garcia, I had to write this down because this was pretty great. Both of them have basically doubled their numbers over the last 2 years. You know, when you're looking at Garcia specifically, 9 home runs in 2023, up to almost 20 last year. Last couple of seasons for home runs, Abrams 18 and 20. I was looking at his over 17.5 home runs this year because, you know, I just think he's going to take another step forward. So there's, I think, a lot to like with this Nats team. The pitching, it may be a little bit of a question mark, but addition by subtraction, you have no more Patrick Corbin. So that certainly is, I think, going to help you, right? There's just, again, I think there's a lot to like, but I wrote this down because it's very just important to me to kind of take a look at here. In one-run games last year, the Nats 14 and 23. In extra innings, they were 5 and 12. And then if you look at September, they were 10 and 16. And I just think that those numbers regress at least a little bit. You only need a couple of extra wins this year to go over the total from where they were last year. I think there's a significant improvement, actually. So I'll gladly take the over 70.5 still around.
All right, 70.5. We're taking the over in Washington. All right, let's move to the NL Central. We've got some agreement between AMags and Mike McClure. So let's see who's going to kick us off. Mike, you're going to kick us off. We like a Cubs over.
We like a Cubs over. I didn't mention this during the Royals over, but the Cubs and the Royals were the 2 teams, if you're familiar with, like, it is a little outdated, I will admit, but just Pythagorean expected wins. The 2 teams that underperformed by the largest amount in Major League Baseball last year, both at 6 wins is what they underperformed expectation by. Not saying that that's where they're going to be necessarily this year, but I'm still very optimistic about the Chicago Cubs right here. I think this is a 90-win baseball team. I think it's a team that's definitely going to win this division. And be interesting to hear everyone else talk about who they like in this division here. I think that when you look at a team like Pittsburgh, for example, and a guy like Paul Skeens, I think he's good enough and the perception is enough there that it literally shades an extra win to 2 wins that direction, which does just simply open up a little more value in division here. So I'm not saying that I had this number at 90. I just think that this is a 90 win kind of team. I think the number should be 87.5. And I ultimately think it probably gets there by opening day, right at that number. So yeah, give me the Cubs over.
Well, I made a mistake because I thought it was Mike and AMags on the same page, but how could I think that when noted Cubs fan Sniper is well, you're on it too. So talk to me. Anything to add, Mr. Fan, on Mike McClure's take?
Yeah, the last 2 years have actually been kind of bearish on the Cubs, now that you know what that means.
Yes,
but this time around, I actually am pretty optimistic. I still think they should have dropped the hammer a little bit more, but that's more of a rant against Tom Ricketts than anything else. In terms of just the win total, look, 83-79, as Mike alluded to, the Pythag last year was 88-74. That's just based on run differential. Kyle Tucker over Cody Bellinger is a pretty big upgrade right there. Pete Crow Armstrong really came into his own in the second half and looks like a very good everyday player now. Miguel Amaya looked like he was breaking out behind the plate for a little bit. And Cubs catchers were the worst hitting catchers in baseball for the first half of the season before Amaya started to hit. So that is a big deal, even if he's a below average hitter overall. If he's just better than a lot of other catchers, that's a big bonus there. Matt Shaw at third base, it looks like the path's clear for him as a rookie. He's a nice breakout candidate. The bullpen was the big thing, though, and it's one of the main reasons why they had so much shortfall on the Pythag there, is because they blew so many games early in the season. Most of it was Adbert Alzolay. He's out of the picture now. Ryan Presley takes over as closer, but Porter Hodge really settled in down the stretch. And I think a big X factor in the bullpen this year is going to be Nate Pearson, a former top prospect as a starting pitcher with the Blue Jays. Looks like he's finding his groove in the bullpen. He could be a big needle mover as well. I think they're the best team in the division. I do think the Pirates are talented. A lot of Skeens there, but also there are guys who weren't as good last year as they should have been, such as Mitch Keller. Key Brian Hayes was hurt for a lot of the year. O'Neal Cruz could be a lot better. We've been waiting on his breakout forever, but I like the Pirates there as well. I actually kind of ranted on their ownership earlier this week on a Snyder soapbox. If you want to Google that with Pirates, you'll find my rant there on ownership.
By the way, where do people find your material? Is it just go to cbssports.com, right?
Yeah, just the MLB tab on cbssports.com, and you will pretty easily find a lot of me.
All right. AMags, we're looking at a completely different team, one that hasn't really been mentioned in the NL Central. Talk to us about the Cardinals.
I want to throw it to Mike real quick. I think he had something to say right there.
Appreciate you. Yes, a very interesting thing I want to talk about with the Cubs quickly. I'm going to be betting on them a lot at home. I think they're going to absolutely dominate at home this year. 3 lefties in the starting rotation. Matthew Boyd, someone I want to talk about as well. When we're talking day baseball wins blowing in, I'll be looking at a ton of aggressive unders for batters and unders for scoring in the first 5. But that ballpark to right-handed hitters, which is what you're going to see a lot with 3 lefty starters, basically plays as the lowest run scoring environment in Major League Baseball to right-handed hitters. So I think it's extremely sharp for them to continue to push and have left-handed starters here. Love what I'm seeing out of Chicago Cubs.
Wow. Those are the nuggets that we need going into the baseball season. There's going to be a lot more of that, obviously, on SportsLine, CBSSports.com, but specifically also on the early edge. All right, AMags, Cardinals. We're looking at an over 75.5.
Yeah, and look, this was the one pick where I would say this is a lean more than an official pick, right? So I think the 75.5 is too low. It really should be closer, I believe, to 77.5. But I didn't feel like I had much of an edge. And kudos to these two guys for hopping on the Cubs. I do think that they're the best team, but I wanted to maybe bet it in a little bit of a different way. So yes, Cardinals, I do think the number's too low. I have to say a bunch of returners to their lineup. Like they definitely could have some of these hitters click and do something that we think that they couldn't. 75.5 isn't a very high number. So they could actually take us like a 5 or 6 win step back from last year and still beat this number. You still have Sonny Gray. And they did re-sign Ryan Helsley. That was actually kind of a linchpin in me being okay to take this. He's going to show up the back of the bullpen at the very least. Jojo Romero, I really like him too in the bullpen. But I think taking the Cubs to win the division at plus 125 on DK is like, you have to go do that. The number likely isn't going to last very long. I totally agree with these guys. Best team in the division. Really excited actually to see Pete Crow Armstrong. If you're in the Discord, you saw we've already played the over on his stolen bases this year. He's just got to get a 30th stolen base for us, but I broke the numbers down if you want to go back and look at that one. I really think he gets to at minimum 30 this year. Very excited to see his development. So yes, St. Louis seems to be selling. Arenado may be gone at some point. You know, there could be some moves around the trade deadline, but again, this is purely a numbers play. And I would much rather, I think, look to the Cubs plus 125 to win the division.
If you happen to be, and Sniper, I'll get to you in just 1 second. If you happen to be listening to this and for whatever reason, this got into your feed, but you're not a SportsLine member. I mean, we keep referencing the Discord. If you're a member of SportsLine, you get all the picks, of course, and simulations and DFS plays and all those things. But you also get the SportsLine Discord. You can go to discord.gg/SportsLine, and it's free to any SportsLine member. So if for some reason you're not a member of SportsLine, all you got to do is go to sportsline.com/join. If you type in the promo code winners, you get 60% off the annual plan. Believe me, this is a very inexpensive deal. Go find out for yourself. Sportsline.com/join. Type in the promo code winners. You get 60% off the annual plan. Sniper, go ahead. I know you had something to add.
I just wanted to say, since we hadn't even mentioned them at all, that the team that I think scares me the most is the Brewers, just because they seem to always overperform. If you just look at the roster and say, how good is this team going to be? They always have 4 or 5 at least extra wins in there. And last year, it looked like they weren't going to be very good at all, and they won 90. So they're probably the team that would scare me the most. And we didn't even mention them. So I thought we would be remiss if we didn't at least say Brewers.
Yeah. NL Central, some sneaky teams for sure. All right. Maybe not a lot of sneaky teams in the NL West, in the sense that we kind of know who's winning that division. And by the way, AMags, I think it's actually great advice. I might go ahead, and I haven't made a baseball bet this year. I might go ahead and take that Cubs division bet and just be a Cubs fan for the year, because I do think that's a pretty sharp play. With all that said, let's transition to the NL West, and then we'll do some rapid fire to close out the show. Let's start with the good, which means, Sniper, we're going to you because you're the guy that has an over and it's on the D-backs.
Yeah, look, I think they're better than last year. They had a lot of things go wrong for them. Again, World Series hangover, whatever. But Corbin Carroll put up a horrific first half, and he's way better than that. And he looked like his old self in the second half. They still led the National League in actually, I think they led the majors in runs scored. So I think, pretty much the same offense. They sub in Josh Naylor for Christian Walker at first base. That actually might be a net positive for them. They have several guys who are going to be better for them on offense. They add Corbin Burns to the front of that rotation. They've still got Zach Gallen around. They've still got Merrill Kelly. I think Brandon Pfaadt is probably going to take a step forward, because if you look at different peripheral stats, he was one of the guys with the worst luck in baseball out of all starting pitchers. So he should be a lot better. Eduardo Rodriguez was terrible in his starts, but he was hurt for a lot of the year. Jordan Montgomery could not possibly be worse if they end up keeping him. That's 6 starters right there. And they still won 89 games last year. So I love this number on them. I think they're the second best team in the division. The Padres are going to backslide a little bit there. Even though the Dodgers are awesome, I like the Diamondbacks to come in second here. So I really like the over 86.5 on them.
Does that say minus 800 or minus 600 for the Dodgers? That's just insane.
Yeah, but still, it's nobody else can win the division. It's
pretty much, yeah, exactly. It's pretty much a lock. Let's see. Proper Rocky says, love Arizona adding Josh Naylor and Corbin Burns. Certainly good additions there. Okay, we go from the good to the bad, but not too bad. AMags, talk to us about the Padres. I mean, Sniper just kind of led you right down the path there. We're taking an under on 86.5. And by the way, in case it wasn't stated, the Diamondbacks number is 86.5. The Padres number is 86.5. Sniper has the over on the D-backs, and we've got the under on the Padres, right, AMags?
Yes, we do. And this 86.5 is at Bet Rivers. Try to shop around with these numbers because they actually do vary a pretty good amount, it looks like, from book to book. So Caesars, I saw, was kind of like way off from where FanDuel was at, was off from where Bet Rivers was at. So on a couple of these plays, actually, you can get a couple win or two extra. So Padres last year, again, in those one-run games, and you look at the second half where they were absolutely blistering. I think it was 40-25 or something like that. And then you look at the one-run games, 22-19. They were 10-2 in extra innings. And just to kind of dive into some of their numbers team-wise, 2-12 12-0 against Pittsburgh and Washington. I found that to be pretty interesting. I think Pittsburgh and Washington will be good enough to take a few games from the Padres this year. So 12-0 against just those two teams last year. I thought that was pretty interesting. And just when you look at who they have either lost already or could potentially lose, I mean, what if you lose Michael King to a trade, right? What if you lose Dylan Cease to a trade? I am just not convinced that this team is like the Padres of years past, where they're going to go out and spend at the deadline. and it kind of has to do majority with the Dodgers are so good. It's like you're going to be there with the maybe the Phillies, the Mets, maybe the Brewers, and the D-backs, like all fighting for a few of these wild card spots. I just don't think the Padres have it in them this year. So I'm going to take the under. That 86.5, I really think needs to be much closer to like 83. And just that's not a number we're going to see right now. So I'll gladly take the under here.
All right. We go from 86.5 to 59.5. Well, that must be Mike McClure, the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah, I didn't know they were offering first half of the season win totals this year, but we apparently are. So no, I'm going to be under here, guys. Look, I think we all know the best team in this division is the Dodgers. But you look at the rest of the division, I think the other three teams are winning 80 plus games here. May not be 86 each, but I think we all get to 80 once again, just like they did last season. This Rockies team won 61 games last season, and essentially made zero effort to get better at this particular point. And to be honest with you, it's frustrating for sure, but they're not going to be competitive in this division right now. It's going to take a multiple year, a lot of money, and it's just not going to happen right now. So I think that the writing's kind of on the wall here. It's not going to be 41 wins like the White Sox, but would it shock any of us if it's 52, 53 wins? I don't think so, because I think that the rest of the teams are going to absolutely dominate there. I think the National League in general, again, I know we're not talking about their division specifically, but just the National League in general, I think, is going to be very strong, and their strength of schedule is significant. What happened to Chris Bryant? Yes. I mean, the Rockies happened to Chris Bryant is really the answer to me in this particular question. So it's a low number. It's low for a reason. You're probably still going to have to sweat it till the final month of the season because how low it is. But I'm going under here on the Rockies. I really think this should be 55.5.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, AMags.
So I will say I really like the Padres, but this was like a very close second for me. And I did see that Bet Rivers actually still had 60.5 out there. So jumped on that one. Really agree with Mike here. I just hate what the Padres have done, continue to do. I said in the chat, after he said it'll be multiple years to compete in the West, I think it'll be multiple decades, honestly, to compete in the West.
Well, it's tough. I mean, especially when you're looking at teams like that spend money. I know Joe Neuenfeld said in the chat, he said, I might have just jinxed the Dodgers by saying they were a lock. Well, maybe, Joe, I was doing that on purpose because I don't like teams that spend $1 bazillion to win. No offense, AMags. Okay, let's rapid fire. Let's just spend another like 2 to 3 minutes. We covered a lot. We got a lot more to cover. SportsLine, CBS Sports, and of course, the early edge. We're just getting our feet wet. Okay, everybody? But with all of that said, we're going to flash up the NL picks that we just went through, NL East, NL Central, NL West. Go ahead and check those out. Take a screenshot if you like, or just listen back to the show and just take it all in because a lot of information has gone back and forth. Let's just do a couple of rapid fire questions here. And we'll just kind of go, Sniper, I'm going to start with you. This one's easy. This one's really easy. We just talked about them. Which team will have the best regular season record? And it's almost not worth talking about, and I don't need any analysis. Just give me the name of the team.
Dodgers.
Mike?
Dodgers.
AMags.
Dodgers, and I think you can get minus 140 out there still for them to have the best record.
Interesting. That is
Drafting.
Interesting. All right. I guess it's a competitive division. I guess you could make the argument against it, but yeah. Okay. I think that's the right answer. Which team will have the worst regular season record? Mike McClure, I start with you.
How about the Rockies? Yeah, nothing else to say.
Okay. Sniper, what about you?
I went with the Marlins. I like the rest of the NL East. I could see them getting beat up badly in division the way the White Sox did last year in the AL Central. So I'm going Marlins.
All right. AMags, how about you?
I was split, honestly, between those two. I have to say the Marlins getting rid of Luzardo is really tough, but I like the other Rockies with Mike to be the worst.
Am I missing something? Are the White Sox not in that conversation? Anyone?
No, they're absolutely in it.
Okay. Okay, fair
The
enough.
number was minus 140, I think, for them to have the worst. There was plus 230, I think, on the Rockies there. DraftKings is what I was looking at. I like that way better than.
I do think those three teams, the White Sox with the other two that we picked, are, what do we say, head and shoulders above. So whatever it would be below, feet and ankles below everybody else, it's those three are by far the worst teams.
Okay, and let's ask one more Dodgers question, then one more rapid fire, and then we'll get out of here. The Dodgers question is, will they get to, obviously their win total, I think, is 103.5. It might be toggling in that like 104 range, 103 range. Do they get to 100 wins? Mike, I start with you.
Yes, 101.
Okay, Sniper?
Yes.
And AMags?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to say no just to be different. No analysis. They land on 99. How about that?
There you go.
We'll clip this in 6 months, see what happens. All that conviction I just gave you too. Okay, best bet. Okay, so this is the last thing. Your number one favorite win total bet. AMags, I start with you.
Well, truthfully, Sia, I think it would be between the Padres and the O's. They were right there neck and neck, but you were on the show, so I'm going O's as my number one here.
Okay, so that's O's under 88.5 wins from AMags. All that Yankees in, like, all those insults, it's coming back to me at this point. All right, Sniper, what's your favorite win total bet that you've given out today?
One of the West ones, either one. I initially wrote down on the document Rangers over 85.5 wins. I absolutely love that. And then I changed it to Diamondbacks over 86.5. I love them both equally. I don't know what compelled me to switch to Diamondbacks, but I'll say the Diamondbacks are the pick there officially, but I also really love the Rangers as well.
All right. And Mike, by the way, I like the Rangers one. I mean, just from listening to your analysis, I mean, the three of you, the Rangers, it just feels like they were just so snake bitten last year, and they're in a really good spot to sail over there. So that's the one that stuck out to me. But Mike McClure, what's your favorite win total bet?
I snake bitten with the Diamondbacks talking about the Rangers. You're incredible, Sia.
On purpose, obviously.
For me, look, I love the Rangers one. I'm going to say the Astros because I want to have a little fun here. I prefer betting to win division more than win totals themselves. But what's more fun than fading the Astros? We all, at least as someone, if you have an American League team, you definitely are tired of the Houston Astros. I think they take a step back here. I honestly think that this is a misprice in the division. I think the biggest edge to me, you could get down on the Rangers team total or win total over, but for me, it's just simply the Rangers to win the division. It is the play that I would be interested in making out of all of this. But for the sake of this show, everything right here, I'm going to be fading the Houston Astros, going to go under their win total of 86.5.
All right, gentlemen, we've got another, 6-7 months talking baseball. Maybe it's more. I don't know. I'm trying to do the quick math here. October, it's February. Yeah, we got a long way to go. And we got so much information to go over. Our favorite MLB win total bets, they're up here on the screen, as you can see. Any final, real quick, any final thoughts? Again, we're just dipping our toes here in terms of the content streets. AMags, any final thoughts? This is your first show back. How you feeling?
Feeling great. I just put maybe one final thought there in the chat. We didn't mention them. Guardians, they were a massive overperformer last year. The number is actually, I think, 10 wins lower than where they finished last year, where their straight line is right now. So I didn't bet the under, but that is one that I've heard around. And then another central team there in the White Sox. People are betting that over at 53.5, but that's no fun. I don't want to do that. So I'm not doing that.
Sniper, final thought as we dive into MLB season.
Yeah, my parting shot is there's been way too much consternation about the Dodgers over the offseason for a team that's only won one real World Series since 1988. They are the best team in baseball. They are great. They are exceptional. They are the most likely team to win the World Series. However, if somebody said to you, you could take either the Dodgers or the field to win the World Series, absolutely take the field.
Yeah, totally fair. Mike McClure, final thought.
I'm just ready for a little day baseball. It's great to be back with you guys here. And it just a few days away. We are days away. We're not even talking months at this point. We're days away.
All right. I absolutely love to hear that. Joe Neuenfeld says, thanks for doing this show. I think you guys are the first to the win totals. I don't know if we are or not, but we don't call it early edge for nothing. Okay. And if you're a member of SportsLine, you know we just cover it all whenever and however we can. So thanks for the acknowledgement, Joe. Sniper in a suit doesn't feel right. Bury that headshot, they say. Okay. Looking forward to the M squared weather report, says CLE fan. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. And some of those nuggets, I mean, just go back and listen to this show. We were talking names, nuggets, and like early season bets and what we're looking for, unders, overs. This is what you can look forward to on the early edge at SportsLine, at CBS Sports, the rest of the way in 2025 for MLB. Ladies and gentlemen, what a great show. Big props to Ben on the ones and twos. He has absolutely been crushing it. He's a super busy guy, and he's crushing it on every single show, including those Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock in the morning for the early edge. We got Mike McClure. AMags is back. Sniper is back. The family is together again. And of course, that includes all of you listening and watching. We appreciate you so very much. We're going to see you very soon on the early edge. Again, we rest our case.